And once that's done, if you go to any file and enter the hotkey, which is leader W. So in my case, because I remapped my leader key to be space, so it's going to be space W. You're going to find that all the lines are prefixed by some special character, and they're all unique. So let's say that I want to jump down to this line 20. I can just do SP, and magically I'm there. Hello YouTube, this is Frank from Happy Coder, and today in this video I would like to briefly talk to you about what is the best way to learn Vim motions. If you've been following this channel for a while, you know that I'm a huge fan of Vim, and I think it's the uncontested best way of interacting with text. However, we all know that Vim has a very steep learning curve, and if you look at this graphic, I don't think it represents the Vim iceberg very well, because things like text objects, macros, I don't think these are very esoteric or very advanced topics. Something on this level would be how to define your own text object instead of how to interacting with the default built-in text objects. And I'm just including this graphic here to try to visually communicate how deep the Vim iceberg is, how much depth it has. And in my opinion, if you know about the Pareto principle or the 20-80 rules, which states that in any skill, a lot of the times 80% of the result is going to come from 20% of the efforts. And in the case of Vim, I would say that if you know how to use the Vim motions, which in my opinion constitute probably less than 20% of the whole Vim iceberg, we're talking about probably 10% of the entire knowledge of Vim. But in my opinion, knowing that 10% is going to give you 80 or maybe 90% of the results. Because at the end of the day, mastering the Vim motions is going to make you so efficient at interacting with texts. And at the end of the day, that's really all we care about as developers. So now let's talk about some of the most frequently cited resources when it comes to helping beginners to learn Vim motions. One of them would be this Vim Adventures game that a developer has created. I think this is the guy's name right here, Doron Linder. When you search for topics such as where do I begin if I want to learn Vim, this resource always come up. And I respect the sentiment or the motivation to try to build this thing that allows somebody to learn via playing. I've had some very brief experience with it. From what I experienced, it was pretty well built. However, I just do not think this is a good way for beginners, because in my opinion, if you're familiar with the mental model of deliberate practice, we really ought to deliberately practice using Vim motions in the same context that we'll be using it, which is interacting with the text editor to develop apps, to write code. And so with that in mind, I really gotta question the efficacy of learning Vim motions in this abstracted video game like experience. I just don't think the experience you're gaining is quite transferable. And another resource that a lot of people cite or recommend is this book written by Drew Neal called Practical Vim. And I've read a good chunk of it. I think this is a very good resource. However, in my opinion, it's too technical and too advanced for beginners. If you want to learn how to use Vim from this book, you pretty much have to start with a console, and without LSP, without any quality of life that a modern code editor or a modern IDE offers you, and essentially you would be crippling yourself just to learn the Vim motions. However, with that said, I highly recommend this book, Practical Vim, along with the website that hosts books such as Practical Vim. It's a website called the Pragmatic Bookshelf, and if you go to the website, they have a whole tool section that has a lot of books that introduce you to tools that can really boost your productivity. I read this book, Tmux 3. It's such an excellent terminal multiplexer. So I highly recommend this website, Pragmatic Bookshelf. So without further ado, in my opinion, the best way for a beginner to learn the Vim motions, ironically, is via a VS Code plugin called Learn Vim. And in conjunction with that, I think the best way for a beginner to learn how to use Vim would be to emulate the Vim key bindings in VS Code with this VS Code Vim plugin. So first of all, every developer has used VS Code, and pretty much every good code editor or code IDE has the ability to emulate Vim key bindings. So with that in mind, you get LSP and all the quality of life support that IDE offers, and that allows you to really focus your mind on mastering the Vim motions. And once you've gotten that down, if you do want to transfer to using Vim in a console environment, then it's your choice. It would be like learning how to ride a bike with the training wheels, but trust me, that's really the best way to go. So in my opinion, this Learn Vim plugin for VS Code has 3 strengths. And we'll be looking at the plugin in a second. The first strength being it really breaks down the core concepts. It teaches you about what Vim does, which is modal editing. It teaches you about operators, text objects, and all the relevant concepts that can help you to get up and running really fast. The second strength is that it allows you to practice Vim in an interactive way. So for all the key concepts such as traversal through your file, navigation, text objects, using macro, the author has built in some exercise files that you can learn about these concepts through an interactive way. And the third strength is that the curriculum or the content really focuses on the part that is the most relevant to developers. So there's no fluff. The curriculum is very, very lean. It's pretty much all the knowledge that you need to grasp in order to become very efficient at using Vim to edit text. And with that said, let's quickly take a look at the plugin. So if we go to the plugin manager, extension manager, and search for Learn Vim. So this is the plugin that you want. It's written by Vin Tharos. Hope I'm not pronouncing his username incorrectly. As you can see, I already have this installed. If we fire it up using the command palette. So as you can see, once you fire up the plugin, how it structures that the author packaged his personal website that teaches you about Vim into this little Visual Studio Code plugin that you can go through chapter by chapter. And on the left hand side, you have the content of his website, which serves as the course material. And for the corresponding lessons, you would have this markdown file on the right hand side that serves as an interactive code sandbox for you to learn interactively. So for example, for baby steps, we're learning about navigation using the HJKL keys. And the author has built in this little maze-like puzzle. So you can enter with your cursor here and using the 4 keys only to traverse through the maze. So that's what I meant by the interactive exercises. And you have these kind of exercises for all the major concepts like macro, text objects, how to insert, delete, how to copy and paste via all the different registers, etc., etc. Very good way of learning. In my opinion, this is a better way of learning Vim than playing with the abstracted like video game like Vim Adventures game. In terms of the third strength that I talked about, which is that this plugin really focuses on the part that is the most relevant to developers, I want to show you guys these following things. So one of them is remapping. So I'm very grateful that the author included this section that teaches you how to remap your key maps, how to remap your keys in Vim. So it's done via this VS Code JSON settings file. And if you go down to the Vim section, as you can see, I've remapped a whole bunch of keys, and these are the keys that I use on a daily basis very frequently. So I remapped the capital letter J and K to 5J and 5K so that when I hold down Shift and press J or K, I'm moving up or down by 5 lines, and that makes traversal through the file a lot faster. And this is the kind of tips or advices that you don't really see in comprehensive manuals or resources that focuses on teaching you the entirety of Vim. However, because this plugin is built by a developer for developers, so he really made sure that the transfer of the knowledge are the most relevant part for your day-to-day development job. And another thing that I want to show you is Vim Surround. So if you're using VS Code Vim in your VS Code text editor, the Vim Surround plugin is built in. And what it does is, if we open up a file, so what it does is that it allows you to wrap a selection of text with special characters with ease. So for example, if we want to wrap this your editor, if we want to wrap these 2 words with, let's say, double quotes. So with the plugin, this is how we do it. So we enter into the visual mode and select these 2 words, and we press capital letter S to go into the surround mode, and we just press the special character we want to wrap this collection up with. So we're going to enter double quote, and that's it. That's the magic of Vim Surround. So again, this plugin teaches you about that. And the third thing that this Learn Vim plugin enabled me to use on a daily basis is a plugin called Vim Easy Motion. And to use that, I'm pretty sure that you have to go into your settings and set this vim.easymotion property to be true. And once that's done, if you go to any file and enter the hotkey, which is leader W. So in my case, because I remapped my leader key to be space, so it's going to be space W. you're gonna find that all the lines are prefixed by some special character, and they're all unique. So let's say that I want to jump down to this line 20. I can just do SP, and magically I'm there. So this level of almost like teleportation like traversal really makes navigation around the file much faster, and I really appreciate this Learn Vim plugin educating me on that. The sponsor of today's video is myself. I've been building this English vocabulary learning app called WordForge, which allows you to deliberately practice the word you're trying to learn by asking you to construct complex sentences with it and offer you contextual and immediate feedback. So if you're trying to learn more English words, give it a try at wordforge.tech. And with that said, with everything said, I really appreciate the author of this plugin, Jaime Gonzalez Garcia, creating this content and creating this plugin so that as a beginner who is trying to learn Vim, you have this excellent lean curriculum, really developer focused resource to accelerate your learning with. So that's everything I wanted to share with you guys today in terms of how to use the Learn Vim VS Code plugin to master the Vim motions. I hope you found this video to be informative, and I'll see all of you in the next video. Bye bye.